Rami had never seen a place so bright and wide before. The Tyraka station hung in the sky above a blue planet, shining like a jewel with silver towers and glowing rings. From the windows of the ship that carried him, he had stared for a long time, feeling both excited and nervous. He was a young man from Earth, chosen as part of a trade mission. Many had said humans were too new to space, too unskilled compared to the older races, but Rami wanted to prove they were wrong. As the ship docked, he followed the group of travelers into the wide halls of the station. The air was cool, the walls made of smooth crystal and metal that seemed alive with soft lights. He could hear many voices around him, speaking the common trade language that was supposed to unite all peoples. But for Rami, speaking it was not easy. He had studied it for years, but his words came out heavy with his Earth accent. Every time he opened his mouth, he worried others would laugh. The group was led into a gathering hall, where other young aliens had gathered. They were all here for exchange and learning, to meet, to share culture, and to prepare for future trade. Among them stood the Tyraka youths, tall and graceful, with pale silver skin and eyes that glowed faintly like stars. They moved with pride, every step measured, every glance sharp. The Tyraka were known for their discipline and for looking down on those they thought less refined. Rami kept to the side, holding his bag close. He was one of only 3 humans in the hall, but the others quickly blended with the crowd. He felt more alone than ever. The host, a Tyraka elder, called for each guest to introduce themselves. One by one, the young aliens spoke. Their voices were smooth, their accents clear in the common tongue. Then came Rami's turn. He stepped forward, his palms sweating. He tried to remember the words he had practiced. Taking a breath, he spoke. "My name is Rami. I come from Earth. I am glad to meet you all. I hope we can learn from each other." The hall was quiet for a moment, and then came the sound of a laugh. It was not cruel at first, just sharp and unexpected. Rami looked up and saw her. Nira, a Tyraka girl with bright silver eyes, stood among her peers. She was taller than him, her long hair tied back with a glowing band. She smiled, but it was not a kind smile. "Your words sound broken," she said in the common tongue. "Is this how all humans speak? Like stones falling down a hill?" The Tyraka youths around her chuckled, covering their mouths politely, but the meaning was clear. They were laughing at him. Rami felt his face grow hot. He wanted to answer, to defend himself, but the words caught in his throat. He lowered his gaze instead. The elder cleared his throat, moving on quickly to the next speaker. Yet the sound of laughter stayed with Rami, echoing in his ears. He sat down again, trying to stay calm, but inside he felt small. As the introductions ended, groups began to form. The other aliens talked with one another, sharing stories and laughing. Rami tried to join, but whenever he spoke, his accent came out thick, and he saw the looks on their faces. Some smiled politely, others turned away. Nira and her friends stayed together, watching him at times, whispering among themselves. Rami did not want to show his hurt. He walked to the edge of the hall, where a large window looked out into space. Stars shone in endless numbers, and far below, the blue planet turned slowly. He pressed his hand to the glass. He thought of his family back on Earth, who had told him to be strong, to remember that humans had always faced hardship and grown stronger through it. Still, it was hard. Later, the youths were given tasks to test their skills. Rami was placed in a group that needed to repair a small translation device used for trade records. The device was broken, its screen dark. The others in the group stepped back, unsure what to do. Rami bent down quietly, opening the casing. He studied the circuits, his hands moving with care. Back on Earth, he had often fixed old machines, and though alien technology was strange, the patterns were not so different. After some time, he found the fault, a loose crystal link that carried power. He adjusted it and reconnected the wires. The screen lit up again, glowing with clear words. The others looked surprised. One of them, a young trader from another race, clapped him on the back and said, "You fixed it faster than I expected." Rami smiled faintly but said little. He did not boast. He just handed the device back. From the corner of his eye, he noticed Nira watching. Her silver eyes narrowed, as if she was trying to understand him. When the tasks ended, everyone was sent to rest quarters. Rami lay on his small bed, staring at the ceiling. He thought of Nira's laughter, the way her words had cut him. Yet he also thought of how her eyes had changed when she saw his work. He wondered if maybe, just maybe, there would be another chance to show her what humans were truly like. He turned onto his side, whispering to himself in his own language. One day, she will not laugh. With that, he closed his eyes, holding on to a quiet fire that grew inside him. The day had begun with shame, but deep in his heart, Rami knew it was only the first step of a larger journey. The next morning, the station came alive with soft bells that marked the start of training. Young guests from many worlds gathered in the wide hall. Each day they were given lessons, tasks, and challenges to test their skill and patience. The Tyraka elders watched closely, noting who showed strength, who showed weakness, and who carried the spirit of a true learner. Rami walked into the hall quietly. He kept his head low but his eyes open. The memory of Nira's laughter still burned in his mind, but he had decided not to let it break him. He had not come all the way from Earth to give up because of a few words. He wanted to prove, if not to others, then at least to himself, that humans had value. The first lesson was about trade routes. Maps of stars appeared on the walls, glowing with lines that mark safe paths through the void. Each student was asked to trace the shortest route between two systems using the knowledge of fuel, speed, and danger zones. Many of the alien youths worked quickly. Their hands moved with confidence across glowing boards. When it was Rami's turn, some of the Tyraka whispered among themselves. He heard one say softly, "The human will take hours." Another replied, "Perhaps he will get lost in his own lines." They laughed under their breath. Rami ignored them. He studied the map carefully. His fingers moved slow but steady. He traced one line, then erased it. He thought of old maps back on Earth, the kind sailors once used when they crossed oceans. He imagined himself as one of them, searching for a safe passage. After some time, he completed his route. When the elder checked the work, his silver brows lifted slightly. This human has chosen the path with the least fuel cost and lowest risk. It is not the fastest but it is the most balanced. A wise choice. Some of the Tyraka looked surprised. Nira crossed her arms but said nothing. The next task came in the form of machines. Each group was handed a damaged drone that no longer moved. The goal was to repair it. Rami's group at first struggled, unsure where to begin. The alien youths argued about which part was broken. Rami crouched by the drone, touching the surface with his hand. He felt the faint hum inside, like a heartbeat that had slowed. He opened the shell and began working quietly. He asked one of his group members to hand him a small tool. At first they hesitated, then obeyed. Rami replaced wires, cleaned dust, and reset the energy core. After a while, the drone lifted slightly from the ground, its wings humming. His group cheered. The Tyraka elders nodded. They spoke softly to each other about human skill with hands, about patience and focus. Rami did not hear their words, but he saw their eyes on him. Nira, standing with her own group, noticed too. She had thought humans were clumsy, slow, and unrefined. Yet here was this boy, fixing machines with steady fingers, while she and her friends struggled with theirs. A small feeling of doubt touched her pride, though she quickly pushed it away. Later, during a break, Rami sat alone in the corner of the hall. He opened a small pad he carried, filled with notes and drawings. He studied quietly, tracing symbols of alien words. He wanted to learn more, to understand the Tyraka language even if they mocked him for it. Two other aliens approached him. One was a short being with blue skin from the world of Koru. The other was tall and thin, with scales that shimmered like glass. They smiled at him and sat down. "You fixed the drone well," the blue one said. "I thought it was beyond repair." Rami smiled faintly. "Machines are like people. If you listen carefully, they tell you where the pain is." The scaled one laughed softly. "Humans are strange but wise. I like that." For the first time, Rami felt warmth. Not everyone looked down on him. Some were willing to see more than his accent. Across the hall, Nira watched. She saw him laughing with the others, his shoulders less heavy now. A strange feeling stirred inside her. She told herself it was only curiosity, nothing more. Yet she could not stop glancing his way. That afternoon, a small challenge was set. Each student had to speak in front of the group, explaining a trade custom from their world. One by one, aliens spoke proudly, their voices smooth in the common tongue. When Rami's turn came, the room grew quiet. Many waited, expecting him to stumble again. He stepped forward slowly. His hands shook, but he held his head high. "On Earth," he began, "we had trade across seas. People carried goods on ships. They faced storms, but they did not stop. Trade was not only for goods. It was for stories, for trust, for peace. Even if our voices sound different, trade can bring us together." His words were heavy with accent, but they were strong. He spoke with feeling, and for a moment, the hall was silent. Some nodded in respect. Others looked thoughtful. Only Nira tilted her head, her eyes narrowing as if she wanted to understand him better. After the session ended, the students left the hall in groups. Rami walked alone again, but his step was firmer than before. He felt he had done something important. He had not been perfect, but he had spoken his truth. As he walked down the quiet corridor, he heard soft footsteps behind him. He turned and saw Nira. She stood with her arms crossed, her silver eyes bright. "You speak strangely," she said, her voice calm this time, not mocking. "But you speak with heart. I do not understand you yet. Humans are not like others." Rami blinked in surprise, unsure how to answer. Before he could speak, Nira turned and walked away, her long hair swaying behind her. He stood there for a moment, stunned. She had not laughed this time. She had spoken with curiosity, almost respect. He smiled faintly to himself. Something was changing, even if only a little. That night, lying in his bed, he thought about her words. He repeated them again and again in his mind. "You speak with heart." It was a small seed, but Rami felt it might grow into something larger. For now, he held onto it, letting it warm him in the cold silence of the Tyraka station. The following days on the Tyraka station moved with rhythm. Each morning bells rang, each evening lights dimmed, and in between came lessons, tasks, and long talks about trade, culture, and the duties of young envoys. For most of the alien youths, this was only a test of pride. They wanted to show their skills, to rise above others, to prove their bloodline strong. For Rami, it was something deeper. He carried the weight of his people. Earth was young in the stars. Compared to the old races, humans were still children. Many in the galaxy believed humans had little to offer, only raw will and loud voices. Rami wanted to show that humans could learn, adapt, and grow just as fast as anyone. He wanted to break the wall of doubt that always stood before him. One afternoon, the elders announced a cultural exchange session. Each group would show a piece of their heritage. Some would display music, others food, and others the art of their people. But most important was the language challenge. Every youth was asked to speak in the tongue of their world, to show pride in their voice. The Tyraka were especially proud of their language. Their words were sharp, flowing like water yet heavy like stone. Outsiders often said it was one of the hardest languages to master. The Tyraka loved this fact, for it made them feel unique, untouchable. The hall filled with excitement. One by one, youths came forward, singing or reciting in their native speech. The sound was like a river of voices, each different, each carrying a story. When it was Nira's turn, she stepped proudly to the center. Her silver eyes glowed as she lifted her chin. She spoke in Tyraka tongue, her voice smooth, her tone commanding. The words rolled like thunder and drifted like song. The Tyraka around her placed their hands to their chests in respect. Even aliens of other races paused to listen. Her pride filled the room. When she finished, she looked directly at Rami. Her lips curved into a small smile, sharp but playful. "Do humans even have a language worth hearing?" she asked in the common tongue. Her friends chuckled softly. "I cannot imagine a human tongue shaping the sound of Tyraka. It would twist and break." Rami felt heat rise in his chest. He had been silent many times before, letting their laughter pass, but today was different. He had been preparing for this moment. Every night in his room, he had listened to recordings of the Tyraka tongue. He had whispered words under his breath until his throat hurt. He had studied symbols, traced them again and again until his hand cramped. He did it not only for himself but to show respect, to prove that humans could reach across barriers. He stepped forward. The hall grew quiet. Many expected him to stumble again, to embarrass himself with strange sounds. Even Nira tilted her head, waiting for another moment of humor. Rami took a deep breath. He placed his hand on his chest, the way Tyraka did when they spoke of their people. Then, in clear Tyraka words, he began. "My name is Rami, child of Earth. I came far, across dark space, not to mock or to be mocked, but to learn. Your words are hard, like mountains, but mountains can be climbed. Your language is like rivers, but rivers can be crossed. I speak today not with perfection, but with respect." The hall froze. The sound of his voice was not perfect, but it was strong. The words flowed in the Tyraka rhythm. The accent was present, yes, but the meaning was clear, and the effort was undeniable. Gasps filled the room. Some aliens leaned forward, eyes wide. The Tyraka youths who had laughed before grew silent. Even the elders sat straighter, their silver eyes narrowing with interest. And Nira, who had mocked him most, stood frozen in place. Her lips parted slightly, but no sound came. She stared at him as if she had seen something impossible. Rami finished with a bow, the way he had seen Tyraka do when honoring elders. Then he stepped back. The silence in the hall stretched long before finally, a few began to clap. The sound grew, spreading from one corner to another, until even those who had doubted him struck their palms together in respect. The elder of the Tyraka raised his voice. "This human has shown courage. He has spoken in our tongue with heart. Respect is not given freely. Respect is earned, and today, he has taken the first step." Rami bowed his head. His chest rose and fell quickly, his heart racing, but he felt a deep calm inside. He had done it. As the clapping ended, groups broke into whispers. Some aliens spoke of surprise, others of admiration. Rami heard none of it. His eyes moved once toward Nira. She still stood where she had been, her silver eyes fixed on him, her expression unreadable. When the session ended, he walked out of the hall. He wanted fresh air, though there was none on the station, only the recycled flow of machines. He found a quiet corridor with a wide glass wall showing the stars. He stood there, letting the silence hold him. After a while, he heard footsteps behind him. He did not turn. He knew who it was. "You spoke our language," Nira's voice came softly. It no longer carried mockery. It was something else, a mixture of disbelief and curiosity. Rami nodded. "I tried. I wanted to honor it." "It is not possible," she said, her tone sharp again, but weaker than before. "Humans cannot shape our sounds." "Yet I heard you. You spoke like one of us." Rami smiled faintly. "Maybe humans cannot shape them easily. But with time, with patience, with respect, we can." For a long moment she was silent. Then she said, "I laughed at you. I thought you were weak. Now I do not know what to think." Rami turned at last, meeting her gaze. "Think of me as human. Not less. Not more. Just human." Her silver eyes flickered. She gave no answer. She only turned and walked away, her step slower than usual. Rami watched her go. He did not know what would come next, but he felt the ground beneath him shift. Something had changed between them. Something had changed in the eyes of everyone on the station. For the first time since arriving, he felt truly seen. The station lights dimmed to soft blue as night hours arrived, but Nira could not sleep. She sat by the window of her quarters, staring at the endless stars. Her thoughts were not calm. All her life, she had been taught that the Tyraka tongue was sacred, that no outsider could ever master it. Yet she had heard a human, of all beings, speak it clearly. She remembered the sound of Rami's voice. His words had not been perfect, but they had carried weight. They had carried respect. It unsettled her. She had laughed at him, mocked him in front of others, and believed she was right to do so. But now her certainty had cracks. The next day, when the youths gathered for lessons, she found herself watching him. Rami did not boast about what he had done. He did not walk with pride or expect praise. Instead, he sat quietly, taking notes, listening carefully to the teachers. He still stumbled in the common tongue, and some still whispered about his accent, but he did not let it show on his face. He carried himself with calm, as if the laughter no longer touched him. During a task about trade history, Nira moved closer. She asked him a question in the Tyraka language, just to test him. "Do you know the meaning of the old roots?" Rami looked up in surprise. Then he answered in her tongue, his words slow but correct. "They were not only for goods. They were for trust between worlds." Her silver eyes widened slightly. She had expected him to fail. Instead, he gave an answer that even many Tyraka youths might have missed. She said nothing, only turned back to her notes. But inside, her thoughts kept circling. Later, when the groups were asked to design a trade agreement between two races, Nira found herself placed in the same team as Rami. At first she thought it would be difficult. Yet as they worked, she noticed his patience. When the others argued, he listened carefully. When a detail was missed, he pointed it out gently. He never pushed his voice above others. Instead, he guided the group step by step. At one point, a young alien grew frustrated. "We cannot agree on terms. The contract will fail." Rami leaned forward and spoke softly. "Trade is not about who wins and who loses. It is about both sides walking away with hope for tomorrow." The group grew quiet. His words carried sense, and slowly, they adjusted their plan. By the end of the session, the elders praised their agreement as balanced and fair. Nira could not stop thinking about his role in it. He had not led by force, but by calm strength. It was not something she expected from a human. That evening, she followed him again. She found him in a quiet hall, sitting with his small pad, practicing symbols of Tyraka language. His lips moved silently, shaping words again and again. His face showed focus, but also something else. Respect. Why do you do this? She asked suddenly. Rami looked up, surprised. Do what? Study our language so deeply. You could live here without it? The common tongue is enough. He thought for a moment before answering. Because language is not only words. It is the heart of a people. If I want to know you, to truly stand among you, I must learn your heart. Her chest tightened at his words. She had never heard another race speak of Tyraka with such care. Even allies often found them proud and difficult. Yet this human boy, mocked and laughed at, had chosen to honor them with effort instead of anger. You are strange, she said quietly. Maybe, he replied with a small smile. But humans are good at being strange. We keep trying even when others tell us to stop. For the first time, she smiled back, though faintly. You should not have surprised me in the hall. I was not ready to hear my own tongue from you. Rami shrugged. I did not mean to shame you. I only wanted to show respect. Her silver eyes softened. She realized then that his act had not been one of pride, but one of humility. He had not spoken to raise himself above others. He had spoken to honor them. Over the next days, Neera's attitude changed. She no longer mocked him. When others whispered about his accent, she did not join them. Instead, she corrected them sharply, saying, "At least he speaks with meaning." This shocked her friends, who had seen her as the loudest voice against him. But Neera did not care. Something inside her had shifted. One afternoon, she even sat beside him during a lesson. The other Tyraka youths exchanged puzzled looks, but she ignored them. She asked Rami questions, sometimes in her language, sometimes in the common tongue, testing his knowledge. Each time, he answered with patience. She found herself listening more, mocking less. Rami noticed the change but said nothing. He treated her the same as anyone else, with calm respect. Yet inside, he felt a small spark of hope. Maybe the wall between them was starting to fall. When night came, Neera lay in her bed once again, staring at the stars outside her window. She remembered her first meeting with him, how she had laughed without thought. Now she felt a quiet weight in her chest. She did not regret her pride, for it was part of her people, but she did regret her haste in judging him. She whispered softly to herself, "Humans are more than I believed." For the first time, she wondered what other surprises this boy from Earth carried inside him. The Tyraka station moved with calm rhythm, but life among young envoys was rarely calm. Each day brought new tests and lessons, and each night carried whispers about who had done well, who had failed, and who carried the mark of a future leader. Rami still walked in the shadow of doubt for many, but slowly, step by step, his place was changing. Neera no longer mocked him. She spoke to him, sometimes in her tongue, sometimes in the common language, testing him and learning from him in return. Other youths began to notice. Some were curious, others annoyed. To see a Tyraka girl, proud and sharp, choosing to stand near a human was not what anyone expected. But the change in their bond was tested sooner than either of them thought. It happened during the fourth cycle of training. The youths had gathered in the great trade hall, a wide space filled with glowing pillars and hanging lights. Elders had arranged a market simulation, where each group had to trade items fairly, learning the balance of gain and trust. The hall buzzed with voices, laughter, and small arguments as deals were struck. Rami's group was doing well. He spoke carefully, making sure each side understood the terms. His accent still carried weight, but his meaning was clear. Neera, standing near him, often filled in where words were lost, translating between alien youths and smoothing the flow. Together, they made a strong pair, even if neither said it aloud. Then, without warning, the lights flickered. A low hum echoed through the floor. The air grew heavy, and suddenly all the glowing pillars shut down. The great hall fell into shadow. For a moment there was silence. Then came the sound of panic. The translation devices, connected to the hall's energy, went dark. Voices clashed in 100 tongues. Shouts filled the room as no one understood each other. System failure, one elder called, but his voice was lost in the noise. Students rushed about, confused and afraid. The market simulation was forgotten. Even the Tyrika youths, usually calm, looked shaken. The station's power core was stable, but the hall was cut off from main systems. Until the fault was repaired, there would be no clear way to communicate between so many races. Rami felt the pressure in the air. He looked around and saw fear spreading like fire. Arguments rose between groups who could no longer understand one another. Some thought others were cheating, some thought they were being threatened. Voices grew louder, hands pointed, tempers rose. Nira's silver eyes flashed in worry. Without translation, this will break apart. They will fight. Rami's heart pounded, but he knew he had to act. He stepped forward, raising his voice in the common tongue. Stop. Listen. His accent bent the words, but the meaning was clear. A few turned to him, but many did not. Then he shifted. He spoke in the Tyrika tongue, loud and firm. Calm yourselves. We will find a way. This caught the Tyrika youths by surprise. They froze, hearing their own language from a human in the middle of crisis. Nira's eyes widened, but then she stepped beside him. She lifted her voice, repeating his call for calm, adding her own authority. Slowly, the Tyrika group quieted. Now Rami turned to another group, switching to the words of a trade dialect he had learned only in fragments. He spoke slowly, but enough to carry a message of peace. Their faces softened. They nodded and lowered their voices. One by one, he moved across the hall, shifting between common tongue, Tyrika language and pieces of other dialects he had studied in quiet hours. Nira followed him, lending her clear Tyrika voice when his words faltered, giving strength to his effort. Together, they built bridges where machines had failed. The elders watched with sharp eyes. They had not expected the human boy to become the center of order, nor the Tyrika girl to stand beside him. Yet it was happening before them. After long minutes, the panic faded. The hall grew calmer. Groups returned to their places, waiting for guidance. The engineers of the station entered and began to repair the fault. Soon the lights returned, and the translation devices lit up once more. When the simulation ended, the elders gathered the youths. Their voices were calm but firm. Today you faced a true test. Not trade, not maps, not machines, but trust. When voices failed, fear grew. Yet in that fear, some chose calm, and others chose division. We saw who brought peace. Their eyes fell on Rami and Nira. Rami lowered his gaze, uncomfortable with the attention. Nira stood tall, her chin lifted, but her eyes flicked toward him. As the hall emptied, she found him again. You saved them, she said softly. Rami shook his head. Not me alone. You stood with me. Without you, they would not have listened. Her lips curved slightly, almost a smile. Perhaps. But without you, I would not have stood at all. They walked side by side in silence through the quiet corridors. The station lights glowed faintly, casting long shadows. For the first time, their steps felt equal. Later that night, in the privacy of her room, Nira thought of what had happened. She remembered how quickly she had once mocked him, and how now she had chosen to defend him. She remembered the fear in the hall and the sound of his voice rising above it, strong even through his accent. She whispered to herself, he spoke and they listened. A human spoke and they listened. It was not pride she felt, nor shame, but something new. A seed of respect that had taken root in her heart, and no matter how hard she tried, she knew it would grow. The next morning, the station felt different. Word of the previous day's trial had spread quietly among the youths. Even the most skeptical began to whisper about the human boy who had calmed the hall when machines failed and voices could not carry. Rami moved through the halls as usual, calm and focused. He did not seek attention, yet it found him, as it always did when courage and skill met opportunity. Nira walked beside him during lessons. She no longer looked at him with doubt or mockery. Instead, her gaze was thoughtful, observant, and sometimes hesitant. Others in the hall noticed the unusual pair. A Tyraka girl who once laughed at him now stood near him in almost silent support. Some youths exchanged confused glances. Even elders remarked quietly among themselves. The day brought a new challenge. The elders called a council, inviting all the youths to present solutions to a trade problem. Two races were at an impasse. Their agreements had failed, and now they sought a fair resolution. Each student was to participate in discussion, but the elders would judge who contributed with clarity, fairness, and understanding. As the groups prepared, murmurs ran through the room. Many doubted that Rami, a human, could lead. His accent alone made some hesitate. Some laughed quietly, thinking he would stumble again under pressure. Nira, however, stepped beside him. Her presence gave him calm, though he did not need it. He had learned over days that respect came from quiet confidence, not force. The discussion began. Voices rose, some smooth, some sharp. The alien youths presented arguments, pointing out flaws, highlighting advantages. At first, chaos threatened the hall. Then Rami stood and spoke. He did not speak in his native tongue. He began in the common language, clear and deliberate. Trade is not a battle. It is not about who wins or loses. It is about balance. Both sides must leave with fairness, or no agreement will last. Some rolled their eyes, thinking his words simple. But he continued, moving between languages he had learned. He repeated key points in Tyraka, gently explaining complex terms. He spoke to each group in their own tongue, showing that he understood both sides. The council watched. Even Nira, who had seen him accomplish much before, felt surprise and pride. The room fell silent. Every argument now flowed into understanding. Misunderstandings disappeared. The solution formed naturally, guided by a human boy whose voice was steady and clear. When the discussion ended, the elders stood. They were silent for a moment, then one of them spoke. We have seen skill, courage, and respect. Many expected failure. Instead, we see wisdom and patience. This human, who arrived with little knowledge of our ways, has proven strength in thought, action, and honor. A ripple of surprise went through the youths. Some stared at Rami, some glanced at Nira. She gave him a small nod. Their eyes met for a brief moment, sharing quiet understanding. Later, outside the council chamber, whispers grew louder. He led with calm, said one. Even Tyraka cannot speak like that, said another. Nero listened, saying nothing at first. Then she turned to Rami. You did it again, she said softly. You spoke, and they listened. I never imagined this. Rami smiled faintly. I only spoke the truth. Sometimes truth is enough to make others hear. She considered this. For a long time, she had believed strength was shown by pride, by skill alone, by the ability to command attention. But now she realized there was another kind of strength. Quiet, patient, respectful, yet unyielding. Rami carried it in every word, in every action. A few days passed, and the other youths began to treat Rami differently. They asked questions, they sought guidance, they watched his methods. Some were still skeptical, but curiosity outweighed doubt. Nira noticed the change, not only in others but in herself. She no longer felt a need to guard her pride. Instead, she found herself learning from him, not just about trade or language, but about patience, about courage, about respect. One evening, the station held a small ceremony to honor achievements. The elders called names one by one. When Rami's name was announced, the hall quieted. He approached the stage, calm and humble, and received recognition for his skill in resolving the hall crisis and guiding the council discussion. Neera stepped forward to stand near him, a quiet acknowledgement of her support. Some of her friends were shocked, but she did not care. For her, this moment was not about praise. It was about admitting she had been wrong before and that humans, even young ones, could carry greatness. After the ceremony, Neera found him in a quiet corridor. The stars beyond the windows reflected in her silver eyes. "I mocked you," she said softly. "I laughed at your accent, your ways. I see now that I was wrong. You have proven more than I thought possible." Rami looked at her. "I do not seek revenge or proof. I only want to show that humans can learn, adapt, and respect. You are learning too." Her lips curved in a small smile. She had no words for everything she felt. Respect, curiosity, and something new, something lighter than pride, filled her chest. She realized that the wall she had built around herself was beginning to fall, slowly, because of his quiet strength. The elders watched from a distance. They did not need to speak. They had seen the shift, not only in Neera but in all who observed. Humans had arrived with little history in the stars, yet they carried determination, patience, and intelligence that could not be ignored. Rami and Neera walked side by side through the corridors, their shadows long in the soft lights. They did not speak much, but their steps were in rhythm. In the quiet understanding between them, both felt that something important had begun, a connection based on respect and trust, not mockery or pride. That night, as Neera lay in her quarters, she stared at the stars outside her window. She thought of the first day, when she had laughed at him, and now she thought of the courage he had shown. The memory of his words, spoken in her language, still echoed in her mind. She whispered to herself, "Humans are stronger than I believed. Perhaps they will change the way we see the stars." Rami, in his own room, looked out at the same stars. He thought of Neera, not as an enemy or critic, but as someone who could understand him. He knew the road ahead would have more challenges, but for the first time, he felt that humans were no longer outsiders here. They were seen, respected, and perhaps, one day, trusted. The final week of the station's training arrived, bringing with it a sense of anticipation. The elders had announced that each youth would present a personal project, showing what they had learned about trade, diplomacy, and the cultures of the galaxy. It was a moment of pride, a moment of test, and a moment of reflection. For Rami, it was also a moment of opportunity. He spent hours preparing, reviewing notes, practicing both his words and his demonstrations. He was no longer the nervous boy who had stumbled on the first day. He had earned recognition, yet he remained humble. He carried the lessons of the past week in his mind: patience, respect, and courage. He also carried the knowledge that the eyes of many would be on him. Neera, too, had prepared. She had watched him work quietly, learning from his methods. She admired his calmness, his determination, and the subtle way he earned trust from others. She did not say this aloud, but she felt it strongly. For the first time, she thought of him not as someone to laugh at, but as a partner, as someone who had opened a new way of seeing the world. When the day of presentations arrived, the hall was filled with students, elders, and observers from other worlds. The atmosphere was tense, yet vibrant. Each youth came forward, sharing their projects, demonstrating understanding of trade routes, diplomatic agreements, or cultural knowledge. Many spoke well. Some faltered. Some shone brightly. When it was Rami's turn, he walked confidently to the center. He carried a small display board and a set of devices for his demonstration. The hall quieted. He began in the common language, clearly and firmly. My project is about connection. Trade is more than goods, and diplomacy is more than words. They are bridges between people. I have studied the languages, the rules, and the histories of many races here. But the most important lesson I learned is this: respect opens the doors that skill alone cannot. He paused, then switched to the Tyraka language. The words were careful, deliberate, flowing with rhythm. Your tongue carries strength and pride. I have learned it to honor you, not to mock. When we speak with understanding, we create trust that lasts longer than any contract. Nira watched closely, her silver eyes following every movement. She felt a strange warmth inside her chest, a mixture of admiration and quiet pride. She had never expected to see a human speak in Tyraka with such respect, with such clarity. Rami continued, demonstrating a trade simulation he had prepared. He showed how misunderstandings could grow into conflicts and how careful communication, respect for language, and listening could prevent failure. He guided the audience through examples, using simple gestures, translations, and symbols. Each point was clear, each lesson grounded in logic and care. The elders leaned forward, noting his explanations. The other youths listened, some nodding in understanding, others whispering quietly. Even those who had once doubted him could not hide their respect. When he finished, Rami took a deep breath and bowed slightly, in both the human and Tyraka manner. The hall remained silent for a moment, then applause broke out. It was strong, unanimous, and heartfelt. Some clapped loudly, others smiled quietly, nodding in approval. Nira stepped forward and joined him, standing beside him, her presence a quiet acknowledgement of what had passed between them. After the ceremony, the elders gathered the students. Today we have seen skill, courage, and respect, the chief elder said. We have also seen the power of effort and learning across cultures. Some of you have grown not only in knowledge but in understanding. Let this be remembered as the moment where respect and patience became as important as skill. Rami listened quietly, his chest rising and falling with calm pride. He felt the weight of his journey on the station. The laughter and mockery from his first days had been replaced with acknowledgement, respect, and even friendship. He thought of Earth, of his family, and of the long journey that had begun months ago. Nira stood next to him once more. You have changed the way we see humans, she said softly, her voice steady. I doubted you at first, but now I see something I did not expect. Strength can come quietly. It can come with patience, respect, and care. You have shown us that. Rami smiled faintly. I only wanted to show that humans can learn and can honor others. We are not perfect, but we can try. And sometimes, trying is the first step to understanding. She nodded. For the first time, she felt that laughter, pride, and doubt were gone from her heart when it came to him. She realized that a new bond had formed, not from competition or mocking, but from mutual respect and shared learning. Over the next hours, the students began to leave the hall. Some approached Rami to ask questions, to learn his methods, to speak in the languages he had practiced. Others thanked him for helping them see trade and communication differently. Nira remained by his side, not speaking much but listening carefully. Together, they walked through the wide corridors, the stars shining beyond the windows, reflecting hope and opportunity. As evening fell on the station, Rami and Nira stood at the observation deck. The planet below glimmered in shades of blue and green, oceans and forests moving slowly with the turn of the world. Stars surrounded them in every direction. You have done well, Nira said softly. More than I ever imagined. Rami looked out at the stars. I only did what I could. But it is not just me. You stood with me. Others listened because you were willing to learn as well. That is what makes change possible. She turned her silver eyes toward him. I think we will remember this for a long time. Humans, Tyrika, and all the others. This is the start of something new. He nodded, feeling the truth in her words. For months, he had faced doubt, laughter, and challenges. He had spoken in foreign tongues, repaired machines, guided councils, and built trust. Now, he felt that the human spirit had been recognized. He had proven not only to others but to himself that humans belonged among the stars. The station was quiet now. The day's lessons and trials were over. Yet for Rami and Nira, a new journey had begun. One of understanding, respect, and friendship. The walls of pride and doubt had been lowered, replaced with trust, curiosity, and hope. As they stood together, looking out at the galaxy, both felt the weight of possibility. Humans were new in the stars, but they could rise. They could build, learn, and honor others. And perhaps, through patience, courage, and respect, they could shape a future where every voice, no matter how small or accented, could be heard. Nira finally spoke again. Do you think humans will be accepted fully one day? Rami smiled faintly, his eyes shining with quiet determination. They already are, if we keep learning, keep trying, and keep speaking with heart. That is all it takes. She nodded. The stars outside seemed brighter than before, and the silence of space held promise. Together, they turned back to the station, ready for whatever the next day would bring, knowing that respect, courage, and understanding could open doors no mockery could close.